Mr. Chair, we're live.
Thank you very much. And I certainly apologize for the delay. We had some technical difficulties. Good evening. I'd like to call this July 3rd Development Services Committee meeting to order, please. And just by way of housekeeping issues, as to everybody could silence their cell phones while they're in chambers, and when members of the public are speaking into the microphone, to bring it up close to you so you can be heard. The Township of Oro-Medonte acknowledges that we are situated on the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe people and the ancestral territory of the Huron-Wendat. The Anishinaabe include the Ottawa, the Ojibwe, and the Potawatomi, collectively known as the Three Fires Confederacy. It continues today as the home for diverse Indigenous peoples, including the historic Métis community in Penetanguishene. The Anishinaabe people continue to have an enduring relationship with this land, specifically the Chippewas of the Rama First Nation. The Huron-Wendat Nation also continues to pay respect and to protect their ancestors and heritage on this land. We honor the Indigenous history and culture that has thrived for millennia in this territory, and the treaties that bind us together as partners in the spirit of a sustained, sustainable, and prosperous future. We are all treaty people. Our commitment begins with acknowledging the truth so that we can move forward together towards reconciliation. Thank you. May we have a motion to approve the agenda minutes, please, or the agenda rather?
Moved by Shell, seconded by Clark. It is recommended that the agenda for the Development Services Committee meeting of Wednesday, July 3rd, 2024 be received and approved.
All those in favor? The motion is carried. Thank you. Any declarations of a pecuniary interest? Seeing none. If you find yourself in that situation, please declare it at that time. May we have a motion to approve the draft minutes of the previous Development Services Committee meeting?
Moved by Greenlaw, seconded by Young. It is recommended that the draft minutes of the Development Services Committee meeting held on Wednesday, June 5th, 2024 be received and approved as printed and circulated.
Thank you very much. Are there any changes to the draft minutes? No, seeing none. All those in favor? The motion is carried. The minutes are adopted. We're going to have we'll move on to the public meetings and public hearings. First of all, we do have a couple of public hearings in which we just receive information. There'll be no decision in those, and I'll just summarize the process for each of the both hearings and meetings that we will go through tonight. Each application will be considered separately. Staff will advise of the purpose and effect of the application, provide any relevant information, and note any correspondence that has been received to date, and advise of any statement received from the applicant or if the applicant intends to make a presentation. If so, the applicant will then be given the opportunity to make a brief presentation. After the presentation, any members of the public who are registered to speak, provide comments, or who are in the audience will be given the opportunity to speak to the application being considered. The Deputy Clerk will advise of those who have registered, and finally, staff will confirm if any further correspondence has been received during the public meeting or hearing. There will be a separate statement to be read at the start of each scheduled public meeting and hearing. And with that, we move on to the first agenda item 5A, a zoning bylaw amendment 2024 ZBA 04 in the name of Frost. The application is Patricia and Douglas Frost, and the location is 478 Bass Lake Side Road West. This public meeting is being held in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act to obtain comments with respect to the zoning bylaw amendment application submitted by Patricia and Douglas Frost on lands municipally known as 478 Bass Lake Side Road West. Please be advised that this hearing is being digitally recorded for the purposes of the creation of a public record. Only after comments are received from the public, township staff, and the requested agencies will the Development Services Committee conclude this zoning bylaw amendment application. Madam Deputy Clerk, has there been any correspondence received on this matter?
Correspondence received from Bell Canada, June 12th. Simcoe County District School Board, June 13. Township of Oro-Medonte Building Division, June 19. And Severn Sound Environmental Association, dated June 21st, 2024.
Thank you very much. I now turn the meeting over to Catherine McCarroll, Senior Planner, who will explain the purpose and effect of the zoning bylaw amendment application and any written statement received from the applicant. Ms. McCarroll, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Lavoie. So the subject property is identified here on the location map. The property in the southwest corner is 478 Bass Lake Side Road West, and the other two properties do not currently have an address. The zoning of the three parcels is agricultural rural, exception 197. The Township of Oro-Medonte official plan designation is Greenlands. And in terms of the current use for the three parcels, 478 Bass Lake Side Road is currently contains a residential use. The smaller lot is currently vacant, and the larger lot is a Simcoe County forest. Next slide. The image on the left-hand side shows an aerial image of the three properties that are circled in red. Last year, they were all one lot, and the applicants conveyed a larger woodlot to Simcoe County to enlarge the Simcoe County forest. And the property is surrounded on all three sides, the west, the north, and the east, by a county forest. Because they were conveying lands to the county, they were not required to go through a formal severance application. 478 Bass Lake Side Road, which is in the bottom left-hand corner, contains a dwelling. Back in 2010, they obtained a zoning bylaw amendment to rezone the lands from the agricultural rural zone to the agricultural rural exception 197 hold zone to permit a bed and breakfast. Later in 2010, the hold was removed because they had entered into a site plan application with the township. The bed and breakfast is no longer in use, and as of November 2023, the site plan agreement was removed from title of the property. So as a result of the transfer of land to Simcoe County, there was actually a lot that was created in the middle, which you can see is the smaller one in the center that's currently a woodlot, but can be used for future residential use. And then the image on the right-hand side shows the public notice sign that was posted adjacent to the road. Next slide. The purpose of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is to remove exception 197, which permitted the bed and breakfast establishment, and rezone 478 Bass Lake Side Road from the agricultural rural exception 197 zone to the agricultural rural zone. Rezone the smaller vacant parcel to the rural residential 2 zone. And the reason that planning staff are recommending that is because the parcel is not large enough to permit an agricultural use. And rezone the county forest to the open space zone to permit the county forest. Next slide. The map on the left-hand side shows the Township Official Plan natural heritage features. So as you can see here on this property, there is a woodland and there's also an evaluated wetland. And then the image on the right-hand side shows the existing zoning, which is the agricultural rural exception 197 zone. Next slide. These are the photos looking both northeast and southwest along Bass Lake Side Road West. Next slide. The image on the left-hand side shows the existing single detached dwelling that's located at 478 Bass Lake Side Road. And then the image on the right-hand side shows the 2 existing detached accessory buildings. Next slide. Now this image here shows the woodland that's on both the county forest property and the vacant woodlot. So the county forest would be rezoned to open space and the vacant lot would be rezoned to rural residential 2. Next slide. So this concludes my presentation. There will be no decision made at tonight's meeting. The purpose was simply to receive comments, and a report will be brought forward to a future meeting. And I am available if there are any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. McCarroll. I can now ask the applicants, Doug and Patricia Frost, who are registered to speak, if they wish to provide any further comment with regard to the staff report. Oh, Mr. Frost, please,
Thank you,
step
Mr.
forward
Chair.
and step your name.
Thank you.
State your name.
I guess just to add a little clarification, When we decided to sell the back 90 acres to the township, or to the county, there was the site plan agreement in place, which had to be removed. We were also advised that the holding provision was still in place, and I think the township's official zoning map continued to show that. So following the sale, we decided we would basically clean up the zoning to remove that holding exemption, because the bed and breakfast had closed in 2018. So the purpose of our application was really just that, to remove the H on the zoning. We made no application in respect of the 90 acres owned by the county, so I have no idea what the county thinks of your proposal to rezone it, but that's up to the county. So yesterday we received, through our lawyers, we received a notice from township staff that the hold provision had in fact been removed in 2010 once the site plan agreement was in place. But there had been an error in the township's zoning map that did not show that. The H continued to be there. So in many respects, the application which we sought was not really required, other than, I guess, there is a rezoning on the small 3.5 acre lot. Anyway, that's, you know, we have no objection to the proposed rezoning, but it does seem that much of it was not required. So any consideration for a refund of our fee would be much appreciated. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Frost. Appreciate your comments. Members of the committee, do you have any questions? Or no? No questions at all. Very good. Madam Deputy Clerk, is anyone else registered to speak to this matter?
Patricia Frost had also registered, if we can confirm if there were any comments to be received.
She's not here tonight.
Okay, thank you.
So the former speaker, Mr. Frost, is confirming that she will not be making comment. Thank you. Just have to say that for the record. Has there been any further correspondence received on the matter during the course of the meeting?
Nothing further has been received, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. And is there anyone else here in the chambers who wishes to speak to this matter? Okay. Seeing no one. Okay, well, with that, I think we can conclude the meeting. The committee wishes to thank everybody for their participation, either through their submissions or written or oral comments. And these matters will be taken into consideration when staff prepares their report. And a copy of the meeting will be mailed out to the applicant, agent, and anyone who has submitted written comments or provided oral comments during the hearing in regard to the application. Thank you very much. With that, we move on to item 5B, zoning bylaw amendment application 2024 ZBA 06, Eagles Rest Estates. The applicant is Eagle Rest Estates Limited, care of Jeff Stravato. The location is 1552 Bass Lake Side Road West. This public meeting is being held in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act to obtain public comments with respect to the zoning bylaw amendment application submitted by Eagles Rest Estates Limited, care of Jeff Stravato, on lands municipally known as 1552 Bass Lake Side Road West. Please be advised that this hearing is being digitally recorded for the purposes of the creation of a public record. Only after comments are received from the public, township staff, and requested agencies will the Development Services Committee make a decision on the zoning bylaw amendment application. Madam Deputy Clerk, have we had correspondence on this matter, please?
Correspondence received from Bell Canada, June 12th and June 19. Township of Oro-Medonte Operations Division, June 12th and June 19. Nation Huron Wendat, dated June 17. Enbridge Gas, dated June 18 and 25. Township of Oro-Medonte Building Division, dated June 19. Jones Consulting, June 19. Simcoe County District School Board, June 19 and June 28. Ministry of Environment, Conservation, and Parks, June 19. Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority, June 20. Township of Oro-Medonte Environmental Services, June 21st. Chris and Samantha Hoffman, June 30. Sonia Farnia, July 2nd. Jennifer Strazzery, dated July 2nd. Paul Grass, dated July 2nd. Len Watson, dated July 2nd. John McGee, dated July 2nd. Don Forbes, July 2nd. Jeanette Hayward, July 2nd. Jack Pierce, July 2nd. Susan Vaughn Svoboda, July 2nd. Todd Moser, July 2nd. Lisa and Stephen Chase, July 2nd. Janet Howe, July 2nd. Paul Weber, July 2nd. Debbie Palmer, July 2nd. Phyllis and Peter Fletcher, July 2nd. Al Baker, July 3rd. And Peter Ozachuk and Karen Knitter, July 3rd, 2024.
Thank you very much. Now I'll turn the meeting over to George Vadaboncourt, Manager Planning Special Projects, who will explain the purpose and effect of the zoning bylaw amendment application and any written statement received from the applicant. Mr. Vadaboncourt, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of Development Services Committee. The public meeting this evening deals with the proposed zoning bylaw amendment application 2024 ZBA 06 pertaining to the Eagles Rest Estates subdivision. The location is at 1552 Bass Lake Side Road West. The current zoning is residential 1, exception 319 and 320. The official plan designates the property rural residential, and the current use is that the land is being serviced for a residential subdivision currently. Next slide, please. So the image on the left is an aerial shot of the proposed subdivision. Second line north is to the left. Bass Lake Side Road is the road that the subdivision fronts on, and line 3 north is to the right. The center image shows the proposed notice sign on line 3 north, and the image on the right shows the public notice sign on Bass Lake Side Road. Next slide, please. So the proposed zoning bylaw amendment deals with a provision in the zoning bylaw dealing with the height of retaining walls. Mr. Chair, I'd just like to clarify at this point, because numerous members of the public wrote in expressing concern about the height of the retaining wall along Bass Lake Side Road and on the third line north. And this zoning amendment does not pertain to that those retaining walls. Those retaining walls were approved as part of the overall lot grading plan. So they were engineered, prepared by the applicant's engineer, reviewed by township engineering staff, and approved as part of a pre-servicing agreement that in 2018. So all that work was done prior, and under that pre-servicing agreement, the developer has been proceeding to service the subdivision. So this particular zoning amendment deals with individual retaining walls on individual lots. And I'll show a couple of images in a minute, but let me just describe what the proposed zoning amendment is for. And it's to provide relief from section 5.13 of the zoning bylaw, and to allow a retaining wall greater than 1 meter in height within 0 meters of the front lot line, the rear lot line, and the exterior side yard. And a retaining wall greater than 1 meter in height may be permitted within 0 meters of the interior side lot line. So that is essentially the amendment. In the slide, it talks about, notwithstanding this provision, a detached accessory building may share a common wall with another detached accessory building on a abutting lot with no setback from the interior side lot line is required on that side of the lot. And I'll speak to that in a couple of minutes. Next slide, please. So the the applicant submitted this plan of the subdivision and highlighted in red dots the preliminary estimate of the lots requiring relief. And Mr. Chair, members of council, you'd be familiar with the subdivision in that it's the topography varies quite dramatically as you go from Bass Lake Side Road up to the top of the hill, and as a result, and I'll show on the next slides, the retaining walls are required, and you'll see those dots, and you'll see a couple of lots that are highlighted that I'm going to speak to in a minute. Next slide, please. So the image on the left shows proposed lots 77 to 80. And the image in the middle is the plot plan for lot 79, which shows a single-family home with an attached garage on the lot. And on the left-hand side is a retaining wall between that lot and lot 78. And then at the rear of the property, there are two retaining walls. And if you can look at the image on the left, you can see how the property slopes away from the road to the back, and it also slopes down the hill from where the photo was produced. So hence the retaining wall from required from one lot to the next lot. And the image on the right just shows proposed lot 150 looking south. And again, it's to try to give members of committee and the public just an idea of the change in elevation on the property. Next slide, please. So this image on the left shows proposed lots 164 to 170, and you can again see the change in topography as the subdivision is shown there. And in the center image is lot 160 plot plan, and that is a corner lot, and it's a little further down from the lots that are shown in the image on the right. And in that particular image, the retaining wall is along the boundary on the private property adjacent to the road, and then along the back of the property. So again, a private retaining wall on the property line. So the applicants are seeking, next slide please, the applicants are seeking relief from the zoning permission to allow these small retaining walls on individual properties. The estimate at this particular time is around 75 of the 208 lots would require this relief. The proposed amendment is a blanket amendment that would apply to the whole subdivision. Mr. Chair, that concludes my comments. There's no decision made at this evening's meeting. The purpose is to hear public comments. There is a representative from the applicant here who's going to be making a presentation, and there's also a representative from one of the builders here this evening that might be available to answer questions that committee or members of the public have. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you very much, Mr. Vadaboncourt. I now ask Greg Baker, who is registered to speak to the application, if he has anything to add and for further comment. Mr. Baker, please just state your name.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. My name is Greg Barker. I may have missed the R in the registration, so I apologize. I'm a partner with Innovative Planning Solutions and am pleased to represent Crystal Homes and Fernbrook Homes. Crystal and Fernbrook are the home builders in the subdivision. They're not the original developer. And I would like to thank staff and Mr. Vadaboncourt for his presentation. I will do my best not to repeat some of the same information, but I do have a brief presentation to provide. And I'd also like to build on and comment on Mr. Vadaboncourt's comment that the application being considered this evening is not intended to capture the retaining walls that are existing on site. As we've heard from the clerk, there's a number of comments from the public as well as agencies. I've had a chance to read through some of the comments from the public, and in an effort to try to get ahead of the comments that we may hear after I speak, As Mr. Vadabancourt indicated, those retaining walls were submitted for review and approval and constructed with municipal approval. And this application is not here for that. Next slide, please. So the subject lands, they're outlined here in red, the former RCAF Station Edgar, 1552 Bass Lake Side Road, just south and to the west of Horseshoe Valley. The lands are approximately 45.77 hectares in size with multiple frontages. The lands are designated Edgar Center Special Policy Area in your official plan, and they're also zoned as R1 exceptions 319 and 320, as well as open space. The site, as committee is likely aware, it has been cleared and pre-graded to accommodate future residential development. Next slide, please. So when I refer to future residential development, there's a history of approvals on this site, including in 2015 for a draft plan of subdivision, followed then by a zoning application and draft plan of subdivision amendment in 2020 to permit the development of 208 single detached dwellings, as well as the associated features and blocks with that development. And so since that time, the developer and the municipality have been working together to satisfy conditions of approval in order to secure final approval and subdivision registration. It's at this time that the developer, as well as the township, they have executed a subdivision agreement and signed the final M plans. It's understood that these documents have been couriered to the land registry office and may be registered on title any day. Next slide, please. So while this work was underway, Crystal Homes and Fernbrook Homes, they've been preparing individual plot plans, a couple of which were demonstrated on Mr. Vadabancourt's presentation for sort of an initial review through the building permit process. Part of the challenge, as seen with some of the images and for anyone who has been to the site, of course, is the natural topography and conditions of the property. And this application is being considered for retaining walls on the individual lots. As Mr. Vadabancourt indicated, there's approximately 75 lots identified at this time, though it is anticipated future lots may be identified as the design process evolves and individual homeowners work with the builders on their individual plot plans. And these retaining walls, they are at or near property lines, and they are required in order to develop and provide for to maximize the usable and usable amenity space on each property and siting the homes in a consistent manner. And as Mr. Vadabancourt indicated, the walls being contemplated under the bylaw, under the municipality zoning bylaw, they are considered accessory structures and are subject to setbacks in the bylaw. So next slide, please. So having said all that, the purpose of the application is to permit retaining walls over 1 meter in height within the required setbacks. The walls would be located interior to the subdivision and wouldn't impact surrounding properties. As I indicated, 75 lots have been identified and there is potential for more, hence the reason for a blanket easement, blanket zoning amendment application over the entire property. No further changes to the existing zoning or draft plan are impacted by this application, and if approved, it would allow for the design process to continue towards construction, but ultimately through the building permit process with the municipality. Next slide, please. And again, very briefly, this slide was submitted with the application, or this image was submitted with the application. This identifies in red the lots that have been identified thus far, which do not comply with the standards in the bylaw. And next slide, please. So this slide, similar to Mr. Vadabancourt's slide, it illustrates the proposed amendment on the property. This proposes to amend the existing site-specific zoning by adding provisions relating to the location of retaining walls. The only change proposed by this application to the bylaw is a request to reduce the setback requirements for retaining walls greater than 1 meter in height. And so to be clear, the retaining walls greater than 1 meter in height are permitted. Perhaps staff could correct me after, I believe, up to a height of 4.5 meters in height, only that they must be set back from certain property lines. And as Mr. Vadamancourt demonstrated in a couple of plot plans, there's plans that have been submitted with the retaining walls closer or at property lines. Next slide, please. So in summary, the proposed application, this would facilitate the continued progress towards construction on this development through building permit. This application allows for the efficient development of the lots, including the placement of dwellings and usable amenity space. It also ultimately reduces the number of retaining walls that would be required if full compliance with the provisions of the bylaw are met. The lands are otherwise designated and zoned as well as draft approved for the 208 residential lots. And the scope of this application, as I indicated again, relates to retaining walls internal to the subdivision, not the existing walls. And through our review, the application conforms to and does not conflict with applicable planning policies. And as I said, if this is approved, would allow for the development to proceed. So that completes my presentation, Mr. Chair. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to respond. If I could also add, Kathy DiSilvestro from Crystal Homes is also available. She has registered to speak, so maybe get ahead of that. She is in attendance, not virtually. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Barker. Appreciate that. Ms. DiSilvestro, did you wish to speak as well at this time or await questions? I'll await questions. She agrees to await questions. Do we have any questions from members of the committee? Oh, Councillor Bard, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, through you. Just to get an idea of the timing of things. So was a grading plan already submitted, and then therefore this would probably alter that original grading plan? So would another grading plan follow up with this, or?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So I believe that there's been a sort of overall grading plan submitted as part of the subdivision approval. At this time, what is being submitted in a sort of a preliminary manner, because the subdivision is not registered, is individual plot plans. So those individual plot plans would have to demonstrate overall conformity with that master grading plan.
Thank you very much for that, Mr. Mayor.
Actually, Councillor Bard asked the question. I was wondering about the process, and maybe through you, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Spagnell or Mr. Vadamancourt, help me understand the process as this lays out, because of lot grading in comparison to what has to be done before foundation permits are issued.
So, Your Worship, the zoning administrator needs to do a zoning review on each of the individual plot plans. I've shown 2. I believe she's received over 25 of them, and they have to be deemed to be in conformity with the zoning bylaw. And when she commenced her review, that's how she picked up that these retaining walls were, as proposed, were in violation of the current zoning bylaw. So as a zoning amendment would have to take place before the zoning administrator would be able to sign off on the zoning permit, and then a building permit could be issued.
Okay, and just a supplemental. So I take it the whole idea of the process is to get these retaining walls in place so that if we do get a heavy downpour of rain, that we don't have, it will hold the material in the positions it needs to be held in without running all over the property, correct?
Your Worship, the retaining walls will do some of that, but there's other engineering that's required. In addition, the exposed sand needs a cover. It needs some grass or some sod or something so that the rain is not hitting the sand and then washing it away. So there's other provisions in the engineering plans to prevent the types of washouts that we're seeing now, because there's so much exposed sand on the site.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Hutchison, please.
Thank you. Sorry, Mayor Greenlaw, or sorry, Deputy Mayor Lavoie. Through you, I think people are concerned also around what the appearance of this is going to look like in reaction to the wall that currently is facing Bass Lake Side Road. And with these approvals that were done in 2018, I don't think anyone was given or provided a rendering or some idea as to what this was going to look like from the road and from the community. So I'm wondering if there's some possibility of some sort of rendering as to how we can see this is actually going to look as a finished development with these retaining walls. Because I'll be perfectly honest with you, the appearance of the wall along Bass Lake Side Road now has caused a great deal of concern within the community. It doesn't fit with the community that we live within, and it just came as a shock to everyone. And it still is, continues to be worked on, and it seems like it continues to grow over time. And this is really concerning to the community. And I'm really hopeful that as this development continues to be built out, that we have an idea of what this is going to look like as far as a feature within the community.
Thank you very much. Mr. Barker, please, if you will.
Through your chair, I can speak to the builder about providing some renderings of these walls as part of the consideration of the application. I think that's something that is possibly doable, and we can work with staff to provide those for a staff recommendation report. But aside from back in 2018, IPS, my firm was retained towards the end of 2019. I wasn't involved in that pre-servicing agreement in 2018, but I appreciate the feedback that you have, and certainly the feedback from the community. But let me work with the home builders and see if we can provide some renderings to illustrate these walls. Thank you.
May I just ask for a point of clarity, though, on your question? Would it be appropriate if that rendering considered the view from driving by as opposed to being on the properties? Is that the intent?
I would say both.
Both. Okay. Thank you very much. Just for your context.
Oh, sorry.
I'm just going to add.
Please state your name, though, Miss.
Kathy DiSilvestro. I'm just going to add one comment. The retaining walls are within the individual property owners' backyards. So from the road, you won't really see much. They may have fences on top of them. They're inside their backyards. They're not, for the most part, they're not exposed like what you see on Bass Lake Road. And they won't be that massive. They're different. It's a much smaller, but it's contained within their own properties. It's nothing that's on the public, like public exposure like that.
Thank you. I'm supplementary.
Yes, please go ahead.
So you said two things that I'd like to get some clarity on then. So these retaining walls are going to be the responsibility of the homeowners, is that correct? If there's an issue with these retaining walls in the future, then it's up to the homeowner to deal with the matter?
Yes.
And so if these retaining walls are abutting other properties with a zero clearance, if there's a situation where there's a retaining wall that requires repair, but it needs to be accessed through another person's property, that would be then between neighbors?
Typically, you don't need access on both sides to repair a retaining wall. So whichever side of the property line the retaining wall is on would be able to fully service it.
Okay. Thank you. And then you mentioned fences. So is there some expectation there's going to be fences on between these properties?
I think it's possible. I think your bylaw permits for it right now. People can have fences on top of their retaining walls. All we're doing is taking the current bylaw and saying instead of being 3 feet within, we're moving it out, but none of those other conditions would change.
Okay, thank you. May I get clarification on that, Mr. Spagnol or Mr. Van de Moncourt, with regard to fencing?
To you, Deputy Mayor Lavoie, to Councillor Hutchison. Currently under the zoning bylaw, there's no requirement for any setbacks related to fencing and whatnot. So fences can be erected on property line or on either side of the property line, and that's really up to the property owners to decide on how that's going to work. So the arrangement and just to supplement the answer, essentially any maintenance with respect to these retaining walls would be civil in nature because they are on private property. So it would be up to the neighboring property owners to sort out how that would have to occur if, there was to be any, I don't know, for lack of a better term, encroachment on a neighboring properties to maintain. But ultimately, these would be civil matters because these are intended to be on private property. That's for the fencing and for the retaining walls.
No, that's fine, Ms. Hutchison. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, through you. I've got my laundry list, clearly. So I think as well, for clarification for the public, the wall that is along Bass Lake Side Road is also going to have to be maintained by the property owner if a section of that wall was related to the lot. Am I correct? That is not a municipal asset. I want to make sure that that is clear.
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, Councillor, it's not a municipal asset. It will be form part of the private property.
Thank you very much. Councillor Young, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Lavoie. In terms of that wall that's currently in place, to me it looks like the outside wall of a prison, a courtyard. And what I want to know is that there's been some suggestion earlier, and I know I'm just going to talk briefly about that. I can assume that there was a rendering of that wall, and I don't know how it ever passed. If you've seen that wall, it's totally out of place in agricultural area. But my understanding is what they're required to just do some sort of greenery, climbing vines, trees, or whatever up at that area to sort of to hide it. Essentially, it's a hell of a thing to try and hide. But listen, I'm just curious about if approvals are put in place for these retaining walls. What period of time are we talking about? A year or less than a year? And I understand it's subject to approvals, but what period of time before the basements go in, or at least applications for basements go in? Do we know?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Councillor Young. In terms of timelines, so ultimately what needs to happen first is the final approval needs to be secured and the subdivision needs to be registered on title. That's out of my control. That's out of the municipality's control. I think as quickly as possible is probably the best answer I can give you. As mentioned, there's about, I think, approximately 20 plot plans that have been submitted for review. The intention is to get the review started ahead of registration. Typically, they would go in after, but what I'm trying to demonstrate is there's an eagerness to get building. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any Councillor Schell, please.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, Deputy Mayor Lavoie. Through you to our guests. Stormwater. I'm assuming that the runoff and all that is being taken care of by storm drains. And where does it terminate?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So there's an approved stormwater management plan as part of the overall subdivision, and those will go into drains. And there is an outlet. There's a pond on the west side of the property, which would outlet towards line 2.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I myself have a couple of questions. Might we return to the slide that includes lots requiring relief? Yes, thank you very much. So I just wanted to, for everybody's purposes, I just want to draw attention to the road allowance on Bass Lake Side Road West. So there are I don't know, 6 or so properties identified as requiring relief with regard to retaining walls. And there is that large retaining wall along that part of the roadway. And I did want to be clear for the purpose of the public, who owns that large retaining wall and how is it maintained? And how would this impact on the, I guess this is really the rear lot line for these lots. How would that zero clearance impact that retaining wall? If that's one of the lot lines that's under consideration.
Yes, no, great question. And to you, Mr. Chair. So we can provide the municipality with a breakdown of the lot lines which require relief. As I mentioned, that wall is existing. It's very possible, and I don't have the spreadsheet in front of me. It's very possible those lots only require relief to the side yards and not the rear yard. But as indicated by Mr. Vadamancourt, the existing wall will be owned by the individual property owners. The existing wall at the rear along Bass Lake. That wall will be on private property.
Okay, thank you. But this is not a condominium type development, right? So none of these are common element properties. So insofar as that large wall that's on Bass Lake Side Road, so if I own a 50-foot lot that terminates on that 30-foot retaining wall, is that retaining wall mine? To
you, Mr. Chair, yes. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
I guess just generally, I'll just make a general comment here. I mean, zoning bylaws are bylaws that are normally designed with the purpose of reducing the possibility of dispute between neighbors or neighboring uses of land. And I would simply comment to staff and to those here representing the builders and the developer that it does appear to be an inherent amount of potential dispute arising from 1/3, it looks like, at a minimum, of the lots requiring zero clearance retaining walls. And I think in the future we might have difficulty, although I understand, we're into a process already, and we have to be cognizant of the fact that it will proceed one way or another. But we hope we can affect this with the least amount of discourse between the parties. So thank you very much. If there are any other questions, yes, Mr. Vadamancourt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to correct something that I said a little bit earlier with respect to the pre-servicing agreement. I mentioned 2018. In fact, it was 2021 where the agreement was approved by council. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who's registered to speak, Madam Deputy Chair?
Yes, we've received 2 registrations. The first one is Sonia Farnia.
Please step forward, Ms. Farina, and state your name.
My name is Sonia Farina. That's okay. I know it often gets mispronounced. And I do live just up the street from Eagles Rest in the Horseshoe Highlands area. I came with prepared comments, so I want to start off by apologizing that over the long weekend and reading this and not having Monday business day to follow up with Mr. Vadamancourt, we tried to connect today, but it just didn't work out. I'm not going to be able to follow my prepared notes. I learned stuff tonight from this meeting, and I just want to, I guess, really repeat a few of the things that I heard in response to the questions asked, and to thank members of council for the questions that you did ask, because it's good to hear that you're getting what our concerns are. I think, as Councillor Hutchison alluded to, our whole area had a lot of concerns about this development initially, just by way of context, because it was supposed to be like 1/3 to half-acre lots or something like that. And the developer came in 2017, 2018, asking for the number of homes to be doubled. There were a lot of concerns around that for a number of reasons. But nobody ever envisaged, as Councillor Hutchison pointed out, nobody ever had envisaged that the result of doubling the number of homes on this rolling hill would result in that big, giant, ugly wall that just is completely out of character. But it happened. and we're having to live with it now. I do agree with you, Deputy Mayor Lavoie, about the concerns about who owns that wall. I do want to say that there remain within the community a lot of concerns about the structural integrity of that wall. You know, personal experiences, retaining walls give over time. And I know that that is a big wall with a lot of big blocks, but it's also going to be holding up a lot of big homes with a high volume of shifting sands in behind it. Like, I've never seen retaining walls, especially when they're that relatively straight, last forever. So we're all a little concerned about what's going to happen down the road. Maybe not in the next 1 or 2 years, but 15 to 20 is a concern. So when we get this application that's asking for more retaining walls within the development, yeah, it caused concern. Even when we learned that this doesn't have to do with the big wall, it has to do with little walls inside. We still have concerns that it's that type of development, that style of development is just out of keeping with our rural character and our official plan and all of the greenery and beauty that we all value about Oro-Medonte. In particular, when that the bylaw is requesting is talking about allowing retaining walls inside that are greater than 1 meter in height. Is there any possibility to specify a maximum height? How many more big things are we going to see sticking up high? The other ad hoc comment I'll make, we're surprised about fences. We had concerns about the development across the road, recently approved, Eagles Landing, where we have learned now that a wooden privacy fence is going to go all up line 3, beginning after just an absolutely stunning stretch, curvy stretch of forested areas. And now you're going to see an urban or suburban style wooden privacy fence. I'd submit that wooden privacy fences lining our scenic township roads and lines is kind of an urban or suburban thing that we don't want to see more of. In between houses inside is one thing, but not as you drive up and down our side roads and township roads. So I'd ask for consideration about the fencing and nature of fencing that might be added and visible in addition to the wall. The other, let me see, there was one other thing. Just across the road. We are concerned, and I guess the other thing, hang on, fences. Just wanted to clarify about it. Someone made a comment about exposed sand and washouts and needing to cover stuff. There were concerns about drainage. One thing I personally have observed is at the west end of the development, as you between lines 2 and 3, there's a very low point on Bass Lakeside Road. When I heard just now that there's a stormwater management pond somewhere within this development, that stormwater management pond is going to be higher than that low level of Bass Lakeside Road. That right now is protected by hay bales, so I'm wondering what's going to happen with that.
If I could just get us redirected to the retaining walls for the purposes of meeting. Sorry.
Okay.
Otherwise,
Last
we'll
question.
be all over the all over the development.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Last question. What is the purpose of that wording about detached accessory building on an abutting lot? That's caused a lot of confusion and concern as well. It's retaining walls, okay, I get, but why is this looking for relief? If somebody could explain what is meant by a detached accessory building may share a common wall with another detached accessory building. on an interior lot line.
No.
You don't have that anywhere else on retaining walls. So what does that mean?
Okay. Mr. Vadabancourt, do you have a comment on that, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think Mr. Barker is going to respond to that question.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Oh,
And so that's it.
is that it? Thank
Sorry,
you.
I just.
Thank you very much. Mr. Barker, please.
Yeah, and through you, Mr. Chair, to the member of the public, the notwithstanding wording in that provision, that is taken from your parent zoning bylaw. I don't want to necessarily speak to the origins of that. This is a bylaw from '97. The only thing that we have proposed to amend in that bullet, I don't know if it's possible on the screen to pull up the slide with the amendment on it. Yes, this slide here. So the last bullet, the only thing we are proposing to change in there is the within 0 meters. We've changed the setback to 0 meters. Everything else in that provision as proposed is within your parent zoning bylaw. So I don't necessarily want to step outside of my lane and speak to the zoning bylaw, but I wanted to clarify we're not proposing that specifically. It's there in your bylaw today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And one more question I do have, and I think, what clearance do you have intended between the buildings, the dwelling units, I suppose, and the lot line so that vehicles can get through to repair these retaining walls should that be necessary?
And to you, great question. Those setbacks, I expect, will vary. We can look to provide that information to staff as part of the report back. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is anyone else registered to speak to this matter, Madam Deputy Clerk?
Yes, Teresa Pleskina.
Are you present, Ms. Pleskina? Is she online?
No, she registered to be in person.
Okay, thank you very much. Is anyone else present in chambers who wishes to speak to this matter? Yes, sir. Please come forward and state your name at the microphone.
Hi, my name is Paul Weber, and I live on the 4th line across from Highland Drive. Lived there for 28 years. I retain 20 acres of the most beautiful land in Oro-Medonte, and I feel very sorry for the present council having to deal with this issue. I think the past council failed grossly in trying to understand this development and the size of it, and especially what I call the Berlin Wall. I've never seen anything like it anywhere, even in Toronto. I mean, first question is can anything be done about the ownership of that wall? Because I don't think it's fair to put that onus onto the owners of those lots to try and retain that wall, because there is 2 walls. And in between there is a bunch of weeds at the bottom, and there are a bunch of weeds. I don't understand how any resident would ever be able to upkeep and try and create some type of beauty out of, again, a very ugly situation. And I'm hoping that will happen, because there were pictures of homes, and in the background there are beautiful trees. There are no such trees that exist anywhere on that land. At the very back lots, if you go there, you will see a retaining wall like you have never seen in your whole life.
I have seen it, sir, and
okay.
Thank you.
And I guess that's what I just feel that
I know
there's a number of residents, and our issues are, I think I sort of represent a fair number of people all feeling the same way. And we were all thought that the retaining wall on the road was maybe illegal. We found out it wasn't.
No. And, you know, council certainly understands there's a lot of passion around this issue. We do have to restrict our considerations to those matters that are contained within the Planning Act and our, you know, planning and legal matters.
So was the council or the planning department that wall was going to be the ownership of the residents of Eagles Rest?
I'm not aware of what individual council members may have understood prior to coming to today's meeting.
Were you understanding, so the planning department, that this would be?
Yeah,
I don't.
I don't know at this point in time whether, Mr. Vadabancourt, if you choose to respond, I'm not sure that the ownership of the wall is a matter that's before this application. The zoning application is to do a certain thing, which is to provide for 0 meter clearance, and that's what
I understand that.
here to
And
consider.
what I guess I'm asking is hold this decision until you can deal with this retaining wall. 'cause
We
there's
will be
something
receiving
wrong.
a report. So
Alrighty.
at that time, the report will disclose
Thank you very
what
much.
requirements we have. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
I just want to make clear to the public, and you know, I know everyone's passionate about, but we are where we are, and we have to accept where we are. This is about the walls within the property itself. The wall that's in existence along the perimeter at the top of line 3 is there. This is not the time or place for us to be discussing that, and I apologize, but we're here to address what's before us, and I think we need to stick to that topic moving forward, please.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Mayor. Is there anyone else present in chambers who wishes to speak? Yes, please step forward, ma'am, and state your name.
Hi, my name's Linda Miles, and I'm in Ward 1, and I live fairly close to this development. I have one question, and I could be wrong on this, and I apologize in advance if I am, but I've driven by that development several times over the last week or so, and I see retaining walls already being built within the development. Now, I'd like an answer as to whether or not those retaining walls that are already being built in the development, whether they were part of the approval that happened in 2018, but 2021. Because I don't ever remember anything, and I follow council agendas fairly carefully, and I don't ever remember anything being on an agenda for this particular item. So I'm curious, and I'm going to go back to find out how it happened and when it happened. But now I'm curious about what's going on within the development itself, and whether or not there's some advanced building going on prior to approval being given. So that's my question. I also want to comment that I think Paul's passion is important, but there's also there's an important logistical thing here as well. I had to be turned back off that road, Bass Lake Side Road, during a storm that wouldn't be 1 in 100 years. It would be probably 1 in 10 years, a couple of summers ago. And literally the road was flooded. I called the roads department in the middle of the weekend because it was devastating what was happening. So we do have problems with that. But please, I'd like the answer to what's going on in the development. And if it's not being built already, then I apologize, but that's what it appears. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Through you, Mr. Chair, those interior retaining walls that are in existence now were part of the lot grading plan. So they were part and parcel of the overall lot grading plan for the development.
Thank you very much. And I suppose as well, they might be retaining walls that are less than 1 meter in height.
These ones are bigger.
Thank you. Anyone else in chambers who wishes to speak to the matter? No, seeing none. Okay. Any further correspondence received during the course of the meeting?
No, Mr. Chair, nothing further has been received.
Thank you very much, Mr. Karaskakis. Any final questions or comments from the committee members? Councillor Young.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. There's just one question that hasn't been addressed or answered, and as Ms. Farina raised the question, maximum height of these retaining walls, and I think Mr. Barker indicated 4.5 meters, was it? Is that correct?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I believe the zoning bylaw allows for a maximum height of 4.5 meters for accessory structures, which would include retaining walls.
Okay,
Yes.
Thank you. There's your answer.
Thank you very much. Okay. Councillor Schell, please.
Just a comment, thank you, Deputy Mayor Lavoie. I've driven through Horseshoe Valley for over 50 years, and I know that wall is pretty big. It was a shock to me too, but I see potential there for it to be made looking better in time. But I would like to draw everybody's attention to some of the other walls and retaining walls that are already in existence back in Horseshoe Valley. They've been there for a long time. We've had engineers design these, and this wall's obviously been designed by an engineer. I think we need to consider their expertise. And sure, we don't know what the longevity is going to be, but you take a look at the construction on Highway 400 where the bridges are going in, all that retaining walls that are going up in there to hold bridges and stuff. So just a comment. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Schell. Any other committee members? Well, thank you very much. Committee wishes to thank all those for your participation through either your submission of written comments or through your verbal comments here at the meeting. And we will consider these matters going forward in the staff report. A copy of today's proceedings will be mailed to the applicant, agent, and anyone who has submitted written comments or provided oral comments during the hearing in regard to this application. Thank you very much. Okay, with that, we move on to the first of the public hearings, item 6A, application number 2024-A34 and 2024-B06, submitted by Quinlan, Worston, and Quinlan. The applicants are David Quinlan, Marie Worston, Peter Quinlan, Alan Quinlan, and Annette Quinlan. The municipal address is 245 Penetanguishene Road and 261 Penetanguishene Road. This public hearing is being held in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act to obtain public comment with respect to the minor variance application and the consent application submitted by David Quinlan, Mary Worston, Peter Quinlan on lands municipally known as 245 Penetanguishene Road and 261 Penetanguishene Road. Please be advised that this hearing is being digitally recorded for the purposes of the creation of a public record. Bless you. Only after comments are received from the public, township staff, and requested agencies will the Development Services Committee make a decision on the minor variance and consent applications. Madam Deputy Clerk, have there been communications received on this matter?
Yes, correspondence received from the Township of Oro-Medonte Operations Division, June 18, Building Division, June 20, Fire and Emergency Services, June 21, Severn Sound Environmental Association, June 24, Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority, June 24, 2 pieces, and Bell Canada, dated June 26, 2024.
Thank you very much. I'll now turn the meeting over to Catherine McCarroll, Senior Planner, who will explain the purpose and effect of the minor variance and consent applications and any written statement received from the applicant. Ms. McCarroll, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Lavoie. The subject properties are located at 245 and 261 Penetanguishene Road. The benefiting lands are zoned agricultural rural, and the retained lands are zoned agricultural rural and environmental protection. The benefiting lands are designated rural, and the retained lands are designated rural, greenlands, and agricultural in the township's official plan. And the current use of the benefiting lands is residential, and the current use of the retained lands is residential and agricultural. Next slide. So these are images of the 2 public notice signs that were posted in front of both properties. Next slide. This slide goes over the purpose of the consent application. So back in 1986, a severance was granted to create 245 Penetanguishene Road. And the new lot was supposed to include both parts 1 and 2 on the survey. However, the registration only included part 1, which resulted in 245 Penetanguishene Road being landlocked. So the applicants have submitted this consent application to correct the error and merge part 2 on the survey with 245 Penetanguishene Road. The lands to be severed are identified in red on the consent sketch. They have a frontage of 30.5 meters, a depth of 5.5 meters, and an area of 0.02 hectares. The lands to be retained are circled in green on the consent sketch, and the lands, the merged lands would include both the area in red and the area in blue, and they would have a frontage of 30.5 meters and an area of 0.19 hectares. Next slide. The purpose of the minor variance application is to recognize the fact that the proposed lot configuration for the benefiting lands would be deficient in both lot area and lot frontage. So the applicants are requesting a variance from table B4-A, minimum lot area, to be reduced from 0.4 hectares to 0.19 hectares, and table B4-B, minimum lot frontage, to be reduced from 45 meters to 30.5 meters. Next slide. The map on the left-hand side shows the zoning of the properties. So the benefiting lands are zoned agricultural rural, and the retained lands are zoned agricultural rural and EP. The map in the middle shows the designations in the County of Simcoe official plan. So in brown you have rural, in green you have greenlands, and the cream color is agricultural. And then the image on the right-hand side is an aerial photo of both properties. The 261 Penetanguishene Road extends from Penetanguishene Road all the way to line 1, and 245 Penetanguishene Road is located on the left-hand side along Penetanguishene Road. Next slide. The map on the left-hand side shows that the property is designated rural, greenlands, and agricultural in the township's official plan. And then the map on the right-hand side shows the natural heritage features, which in this case on the retained lands includes a woodland and both evaluated and unevaluated wetland. Next slide. These are photos looking both north and south along Penetanguishene Road. Next slide. The photo on the left-hand side shows the existing single detached dwelling that is located at 245 Penetanguishene Road. And then the photo on the right-hand side shows the lands that are proposed to be severed from 261 Penetanguishene Road and merge with 245 Penetanguishene Road. And you can actually see, if you look carefully, you can actually see the survey stakes that show both like the 18 meters across. Next slide. And this photo shows the retained lands, which are located at 261 Penetanguishene Road. Next slide. It is recommended that consent application 2024 B06 and minor variance application 2024 A34 be approved, as the minor variance application meets the 4 tests of the Planning Act, and the applications conform to or are consistent with the applicable provincial, county, and township planning policies, and they represent good planning. All the recommended conditions are listed on this slide and the following 2 slides. They're all standard conditions, and I am available if there are any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. McCarroll. That's quite the little peculiarity to sort out. I would now ask the applicant, David Quinlan, who is registered to speak, if he has anything to say with regard to the staff report. Mr. Quinlan, please just come up and state your name.
David Quinlan, and I think Catherine McCarroll basically laid out the situation that our parents severed this lot 38 years ago, and at that point in time that part 2 was not included in the registration, which has created that we just found out recently a landlocked property, which is, I guess, not permitted. So in moving forward, we've put in these applications to get that 18 foot across the front, which I believe was a hydro easement based on the survey plan years ago, needs to be merged with that house so that it isn't a landlocked property moving forward, because it restricts what we can do with it. So we thank you very much for your consideration in this matter.
Well, thank you, and it's nice to get to your home without having to trespass. Oh, Jeanette, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
My apologies as well. Rudy Mack, who is available online on behalf of the applicant, has also registered.
Oh, okay. Very
Thank
good.
you.
Could we put Rudy on, please?
Yeah, good morning, good afternoon, and hopefully you can hear me.
We can hear you very well, thank you.
Fantastic. Yeah, absolutely. There was an earlier application in the 1980s to sever the lands, and when the survey was prepared, there was an 18-foot hydro easement along the front of the property, and so that created the survey would create a part 1 and a part 2, and so it was just a complete error that the lawyer at the time only a guy, basically transferred part one rather than part one and part two, probably thinking that part two was a road widening or something, which would make it look sort of similar to that, but it was done in a complete error. I suppose if the registry office would have caught it soon after, they could have done a correcting deed, but that didn't happen. So here we are many, many years later, and the only really solution is to go through this process. So we thank you for being able to put that forward, and if there's any questions, please let me know.
Thank you very much for your comments. Committee members, do you have any questions for anyone here? Nope. Seeing none. Is there anyone from the anyone else registered to speak, Madam Deputy Clerk, via Zoom or in person?
No, there were no further registrations received.
Thank you very much. Anyone present in chambers who wishes to speak to the matter? Seeing no one. Any further comments made with regard to the matter since the hearing began?
No, Mr. Chair, nothing further has been received.
Thank you very much, sir. Madam Deputy Clerk, may we have the motion for this?
Moved by Clark, seconded by Bard. It is recommended that DS 2024-084, Catherine McCarroll, Senior Planner, reconsent application 2024-B06, Annetta Quinlan, Peter Quinlan, David Quinlan, and Marie Worston, 261 Penetanguishene Road, and minor variance application 2024-A34, Annetta Quinlan, David Quinlan, Marie Worston, 245 Penetanguishene Road be received and adopted. To the consent application 2024-B06 to permit a boundary adjustment having a lot frontage of approximately 30.5 meters, 100.0 feet, a lot depth of approximately 5.5 meters, 18.0 feet, and an area of approximately 0.02 hectares, 0.04 acres to be added to the property located at 245 Penetanguishene Road, Township of Oro-Medonte, be approved subject to the conditions as outlined in DS 2024-084. 3, that minor variance application 2024-A34, specifically to permit a minimum lot area of 0.19 hectares, 0.46 acres, and a minimum lot frontage of 30.5 meters, 100.0 feet, on lands municipally known as 245 Penetanguishene Road, Township of Oro-Medonte, be approved subject to the conditions as outlined in DS 2024-084. 4, that the applicants be advised of the committee's decision under the Secretary-Treasurer's signature.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Clerk. I call the vote, please. All those in favor? The motion is carried. Enjoy shoveling that new part of the driveway. The committee wishes to thank those in attendance for your participation. This closes the hearing, and a copy of the decision will be mailed to the applicant, agent, and anyone who has submitted written comments or provided oral comments during the hearing in regard to the application. Thanks again. With that, we're on to item 6B, application number 2024-A35, Guitar. Applicant is Shirley Guitar, and the municipal address is 440, line 11 north. And this public hearing is being held in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act to obtain public comments with respect to the minor variance application submitted by Shirley Guitar on lands municipally known as 440, line 11 north. Please be advised that this hearing is being digitally recorded for the purposes of the creation of a public record. Only after comments are received from the public, township staff, and requested agencies will the Development Services Committee make a decision on the minor variance application. Madam Deputy Clerk, have we received correspondence on this matter?
Correspondence received from the Township of Oro-Medonte Operations Division, June 18, Building Division, June 19, and Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority, dated June 21, 2024.
Thank you very much. I'll turn the meeting over to Andy Karaskakis, Manager of Planning Services, who will explain the purpose and effect of the minor variance application and any written statement received from the applicant. Mr. Karaskakis, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Minor variance application 2024-A35 has been applied for lands municipally known as 440 line 11 north, These subject lands have a total lot area of approximately 0.45 hectares and are located on the west side of Line 11 North. Subject lands currently support a single detached dwelling and a detached accessory building. The surrounding land uses consist of scattered rural non-farm dwellings and agricultural uses. The subject property is zoned agricultural rural in the township zoning bylaw and are designated agricultural in the official plan. Image on the left shows a picture of an aerial photo of the subject property. The lands were subject to a consent application considered by the committee on May 1st, which severed the south half of the subject property outlined in red to be conveyed to the property to the south, which is located at 422 Line 11 North. As a condition of that consent, the applicant is required to obtain approval of a minor variance for a reduced lot area for the retained lands, which is 440 Line 11 North, which includes the existing single detached dwelling. The image on the right shows the zoning of the property, which outlines the subject lands in purple, which is zoned rural residential 2. The purpose again is to seek committee's approval of a minor variance from the minimum lot area for the rural residential 2 zone. So the minimum required lot area prescribed for the RUR2 zone is 0.4 hectares. And as a result of the boundary adjustment, the retained lands would contain approximately 0.23 hectares. The applicant's site plan is shown on the right side of the screen. The lands to be retained shown on the right side of that sketch, which is to contain the existing garage and the existing dwelling. An image here shows the view of the retained parcel from Line 11 North, which shows the detached garage and the existing dwelling. And the public notice sign has been installed in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act. So planning staff have reviewed the applicant's minor variance application and is of the opinion that it meets the 4 tests of a minor variance and it conforms to and is consistent with the applicable provincial policies and township policies and is considered a good planning. Having said that, planning staff are recommending approval of the minor variance application subject to the conditions outlined in the staff report. Mr. Chair, that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions committee may have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Karaskakis. I now ask the applicant, Shirley Guittard, who is registered to speak. If she has anything to add, please come forward and state your name.
Shirley Guittard, and I'm just here to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. It's a 2-step process.
It is.
Yes, any questions from the committee? Oh, seeing none. Just stand by, you never know. Anyone registered to speak to this matter, Madam Deputy Clerk?
No, there were no further registrations received.
Thank you. Anyone else in the chambers who wishes to speak to this matter? Seeing no one. Anyone submitted any further comments with regard to this matter during the course?
No, Mr. Chair, nothing's been received.
Thank you very much. Madam Deputy Clerk, may we have the motion, please?
Moved by Bard, seconded by Shell. It is recommended 1 that DS 2024-088 Andy Karaskakis, Manager Planning Services, minor variance application 2024-A35 Shirley Guittard 440 Line 11 North be received and adopted. 2 that minor variance application 2024-A35 specifically to permit a retained lot with a minimum lot area of 0.23 hectares, 0.58 acres on lands municipally known as 440 Line 11 North, Township of Oro-Medonte, be approved subject to the conditions as outlined in DS 2024-088. 3 that the applicant be advised of committee's decision under the Secretary Treasurer's signature.
Thank you very much. Any questions about the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? The motion is carried. Hopefully you'll get a reduction on your taxes. This completes the This completes the application process and closes this hearing. The committee wishes to thank all those in attendance for your participation, and a copy of the decision will be mailed to the applicant, agent, and anyone who has submitted written comments or provided oral comments during the hearing in regard to the application. Thank you very much. With that, we move on to item 6C, application 2024A36. Applicant is Badolato. Applicant is Enza Badolato, and the municipal address is 236 Lakeshore Road West. This public hearing is being held in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act to obtain public comment with respect to the minor variance applications submitted by Enza Badolato on lands municipally known as 236 Lakeshore Road West. Please be advised that this hearing is being digitally recorded for the purposes of the creation of a public record. Only after comments are received from the public, township staff, and requested agencies will the Development Services Committee make a decision on the minor variance application. Madam Deputy Clerk, has there been communication received on this matter?
Yes, correspondence from the Township of Oro-Medonte Operations Division, June 18, Building Division, June 19, and Irv Anbo, dated July 1st, 2024.
Thank you very much. I'd ask the applicant, Enza Badolato, who is registered to speak, if she has any comments with regard to the staff report and wishes to add anything else. The applicant is shaking her head and declines the opportunity to speak. Committee members, do you have any questions with regard to this application? It is pretty straightforward. Anyone else registered to speak via Zoom or in person, Madam Deputy Clerk?
No, there were no additional registrations received.
And is there anyone else who wishes to come to the microphone with regard to this matter? Seeing no one. Oh, sorry. Oh, I had a little quick there on the draw. Please step forward and state your name, sir.
Hi, my name is Joseph Byron Paul, and I'm the contractor that Enza has hired to be able to do some of the work for it. So it's an unfortunate situation on this where Enza had bought the house with the addition that was on it. So she sort of assumed the responsibility of going through and doing the zoning bylaws because the people that owned the house prior to her did not do any of the application forms and built it illegally. So unfortunately, we're forced to be here today, and we're hoping that the decision will be lenient based on the situation that she has moving forward. And I just wanted to make it clear that it was something that she had inherited when she bought the house, and it's an unfortunate situation that she's got to deal with it. Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Mr. Karaskakis, did I completely pass over the fact that you ought to have reported on this matter?
Mr. Chair, you did a well job at presenting the application.
I was going for the finish line. My apologies. Darren, please go ahead if you'd like to.
No, Mr. Chair, as the agent has indicated, the minor variance application is to recognize an existing mudroom addition that was constructed without a permit, and the owner of the property is simply applying for the minor variance to recognize the mudroom addition and to recognize the deficient interior side yard setback. So whereas the minor variance requires a 3-meter side yard setback, the existing addition is set back approximately 1.5 meters. So the applicant is simply seeking to recognize that existing setback and to recognize the addition. That's pretty much it, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, sir. I didn't want to pass over having come here tonight for no reason. Any further communication received with regard to the matter, Mr. Karaskakis?
No, Mr. Chair, nothing further has been received.
Okay, thank you very much. Madam Deputy Clerk, may you have the motion, please?
Moved by Hutchison, seconded by Clark. It is recommended one that DS 2024-091, Andy Karaskakis, Manager, Planning Services, Minor Variance Application 2024-A36, Enza Badolato, 236 Lakeshore Road West, be received and adopted. 2, that minor variance application 2024-A36, specifically to recognize the reduced interior side yard setback of 1.5 meters, 4.9 feet, for the existing mudroom addition to the dwelling on lands municipally known as 236 Lakeshore Road West, Township of Oro-Medonte, be approved subject to the conditions as outlined in DS 2024-091. 3, that the applicant be advised of committee's decision under the Secretary Treasurer's signature.
Thank you very much. Any questions with regard to the motion from the committee? Oh, seeing none. All those in favor? The motion is carried. Enjoy the mudroom. Thank you. This completes the application process and closes the hearing. Committee wishes to thank all those in attendance for your participation, and a copy of the decision was mailed to the applicant, agent, and anyone who has submitted written comments or provided oral comment during the hearing in regard to the application. Thank you very much. With that, we move on to item 6D, application 2024A36, Gold Sand. The applicant is John and Andrea Goldsand, and the municipal address is 909 Woodland Drive. This public hearing is being held in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act to obtain public comment with respect to the minor variance application submitted by John and Andrea Goldsand on lands municipally known as 909 Woodland Drive. Please be advised that the hearing is being digitally recorded for the purposes of the creation of a public record. Only after comments are received from the public, township staff, and requested agencies will the Development Services Committee make a decision on the minor variance application. Madam Deputy Clerk, has there been correspondence received on this matter?
Correspondence from the Township of Oro-Medonte Operations Division, June 19, Fire and Emergency Services, June 21, and Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority, dated June 24, 2024.
Thank you very much. I'll now turn the meeting over to Yubing Fan, planner, who will explain the purpose and effect of the minor variance application and any written statement received from the applicant. Ms. Fan, please.
Thank you, Ms. Chair. The minor variance application 2024-A38 is applied for the property located at 909 Woodland Drive. The property is zoned shoreline residential exception 2 and designated shoreline in the township's official plan. The current use of the property is residential. Next, please. So the image on the left-hand side is an aerial photo of the property, and we can see that the dwelling is in the middle. The detached accessory building shed is in the front yard, and the existing boathouse that the applicants propose to replace and enlarge is located in the rear yard and adjacent to the Lake Simcoe. The image on the right-hand side shows the existing zoning of the property, which is shoreline residential exception 2. Next slide, please. So this slide presents the purpose of the application. The applicants are proposing to replace and enlarge a existing non-compliant boathouse, which is located 1.37 meters from the interior side lot line. The exception 2 of the zoning bylaw requires a setback of 1.5 meters from the interior side lot line. The proposed boathouse would maintain the same interior side lot line setback as existing, and the same setback to the average high water mark of the Lake Simcoe. However, the applicant are proposing to extend the length and the width of the boathouse into the rear yard, which results in a further encroachment in the required interior side yard. And the area of this further encroachment is around 0.15 square meters. So now the applicants are seeking relief from section 5.16.1b of the zoning bylaw for a portion of the enlargement to be located in the required interior yard. On this slide, we can show there's an image which shows a public notice sign that was posted adjacent to the road. Next, please. The left-hand side image shows the site plan, and we can see that the proposed boathouse is illustrated in gray and is adjacent to the Lake Simcoe. The right-hand side image shows the elevation drawings, and from the information shown here, we can see that the proposed boathouse complies with all other zoning bylaw requirements, for example, the height requirement. Next, please. These two pictures show the view looking north and south along the Woodland Drive. Next, please. So the photo on the left-hand side shows the view of the existing dwelling from the road, and the photo on the right-hand side shows the existing shed in the front yard. Next, please. Then these images shows the existing boathouse to be replaced and enlarged. Just to clarify, in the right-hand side picture, we can see two boathouses. The boathouse on the on the left side is the one subject to this minor variance application, and the boathouse on the right side belongs to their neighbors. Next, please. It is recommended that the application, the minor variance application 2024 A38 be approved, as the application meets the four tests Planning Act and conforms to or is consistent with applicable provincial, county, and township planning policies and represents good planning. The recommended conditions are listed on this slide. They are all standard conditions. Thank you all committee members. This concludes my presentation, and I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Fan. I'd now ask the applicant, John Goldsand, who's registered to speak to the application, if he has any comments with regard to the staff presentation.
Are you able to hear me?
We can hear you, Mr. Goldsand.
Oh, great. Thanks. Yeah, it's John Goldsand. No, I just wanted to be available for any questions and just thank the township and the council.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much, sir. Any questions from the committee for staff or Mr. Goldsand? Oh, seeing none. Looks like we've done an excellent job. Is there anyone else registered via Zoom or in person to speak to this matter?
No, Mr. Chair, there were no additional registrations received.
Thank you very much, Ms. Deputy Clerk. Anyone in chambers who wishes to speak to this matter? No, seeing none. Any additional correspondence received during the course of the hearing?
No, Mr. Chair, none has been received.
Thank you, sir. May we now hear the motion, Madam Deputy Clerk?
Moved by Young, seconded by Bard. It is recommended one that DS 2024-089, Yubing Fan, Planner, Minor Variance Application 2024 A38, John and Andrea Goldsand, 909 Woodland Drive, be received and adopted. Two, that minor variance application 2024 A38, specifically for permission to replace and enlarge the existing non-compliant boathouse by increasing the floor area within the required interior side yard by approximately 0.15 square meters, 1.61 square feet, on lands municipally known as 909 Woodland Drive, Township of Oro-Medonte, be approved subject to the conditions as outlined in DS 2024-089. Three, that the applicants be advised of committee's decision under the Secretary-Treasurer's signature.
Thank you very much. Any comments or questions with regard to the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? The motion is carried. Thank you very much for your work, Ms. Fan. This completes the application process and closes this hearing. The committee wishes to thank all those in attendance for your participation, and a copy of the decision will be made to the applicant, agent, and anyone who has submitted written comments or provided oral comments during the hearing in regard to the application. With that, we move on to agenda item 6E, application 2024-A37, Nightingale. The applicant is Aaron Nightingale. The municipal address is 510 Lakeshore Road East. This public hearing is being held in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act to obtain public comments with respect to the minor variance application submitted by Aaron Nightingale on lands municipally known as 510 Lakeshore Road East. Please be advised that this hearing is being digitally recorded for the purposes of the creation of a public record. Only after comments are received from the public, township staff, and requested agencies will the Development Services Committee make a decision on this minor variance application. I now turn the meeting over to George Vadaboncourt, Manager, Planning Special Projects, who will explain the purpose and effect of the minor variance application and any written statement received from the applicant. Mr. Vadaboncourt, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My presentation pertains to minor variance application 2024 A37, submitted by Aaron Nightingale. It's for a property located at 510 Lakeshore Road East. The current zoning on the property is shoreline residential. The official plan designates the property shoreline, and the current use is residential. The image on the right on your screen shows the location of the subject land. Next slide, please. The image on the left shows the subject parcel. It has 100 feet of frontage on Lakeshore Drive, and then 150 feet as Lakeshore Drive swings around on the or Lakeshore Road swings around on the right-hand side. The slide on the right indicates the existing zoning, which is shoreline residential. Next slide, please. The applicants are proposing to construct a carport with a maximum size of 19.5 square meters or 210 square feet in the front yard, with a 5.4 meter or 18 feet setback from the front property line. The applicants are seeking relief to the following section of the zoning bylaw as amended, and it's section 5.13A, permitted locations for accessory buildings. They're not to be located in the front yard, and their proposal is to locate the carport in the front yard, setback 5.4 meters, 18 feet from the front property line. The image on the right indicates the applicant's sketch, and they have put the dimensions of the carport from the front property line and from the interior property line and from the other exterior property line. Next slide, please. So these images are the artist's renditions of the proposed carport to give committee and members of the public an idea of what the carport's going to look like. Next slide, please. The image on the left shows the front of the house with the sign posted in the driveway. The image on the right is the side of the property fronting on Lakeshore Road East. Next slide, please. This image shows the driveway and location of the proposed carport, and the slide on the image shows the location of the proposed carport and the neighbor's temporary cover. Next slide, please. The image on the left shows trees that are to be pruned and the temporary cover. The slide in the middle is a view of the house looking northeast to kind of give you an idea of what the carport may look like when it's situated in the driveway. And the image on the right is Lakeshore Drive east looking west. Next slide, please. It's recommended that minor variance application 2024 A37 submitted by Aaron Nightingale be approved on the basis that it meets the 4 tests of a minor variance under the Planning Act, is in conformity and consistent with applicable provincial, county, and township planning policies, and represents good planning. Staff are recommending a number of conditions of approval listed on this slide and in the staff report. They are all standard conditions. Mr. Chair, that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions you may have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vadaboncourt. Now ask the applicant, Erin Nightingale, who's registered to speak to the application, if she wishes to provide any comments with regard to the staff report. Ms. Nightingale?
Hi, no, I don't really have anything to add.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Please stand by. Any comments or questions from members of committee? Seeing none. Anyone registered to speak to this matter via Zoom or in chambers? Madam Deputy Clerk?
No, there were no additional registrations received.
Anyone in chambers who wishes to speak to this matter? No, seeing none. Any additional correspondence received on this matter, Mr. Karaskakis?
No, Mr. Chair, nothing's been received.
Thank you very much, sir. Madam Deputy Clerk, may we hear the motion for this application?
Moved by Greenlaw, seconded by Hutchison. It is recommended, 1, that DS 2024-086, George Vadaboncourt, Manager, Planning Special Projects, minor variance application 2024 A37, Aaron Nightingale, 510 Lakeshore Road East, be received and adopted. to that minor variance application 2024-A37, specifically to permit a detached carport in the front yard with a setback of 5.4 meters, 18.0 feet from the front lot line on lands known municipally as 510 Lakeshore Road East, Township of Oro-Medonte, be approved, subject to the conditions as outlined in DS 2024-086. 3, that the applicant be advised of the committee's decision under the Secretary Treasurer's signature.
Thank you very much. Any questions about the motion? Comments? Seeing none. All those in favor? Well, the motion is carried. This completes the application process and closes this hearing. Please enjoy your carport. This committee wishes to thank all those in attendance for your participation. A copy of the decision will be mailed to the applicant, agent, and anyone who has submitted written comments or provided oral comments during the hearing in regard to the application. With that, we move on to item 6F. The application is 2024B07, Houston. The applicant is Henrietta Houston, and the address is 3276 Penetanguishene Road. This public hearing is being held in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act to obtain public comments with respect to the consent application submitted by Henrietta Houston on lands municipally known as 3276 Penetanguishene Road. Please be advised that this hearing is being digitally recorded for the purpose of the creation of a public record. Only after comments are received from the public, township staff, and requested agencies will the Development Services Committee make a decision on the consent application. Madam Deputy Clerk, has there been correspondence received on this matter?
Correspondence received from the Township of Oro-Medonte Operations Division, June 19, Building Division, June 20, Fire and Emergency Services, June 21, Severn Sound Environmental Association, June 24, Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority, June 24, and Enbridge Gas, dated June 25, 2024.
Thank you very much. I'll now turn the meeting over to George Vadaboncourt, Manager of Planning Special Projects, who will explain the purpose and effect of this consent application and any written statement received from the applicant. Mr. Vadaboncourt, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll be speaking to consent application 2024B07. It's for a boundary adjustment. The subject property is located at 3276 Penetanguishene Road. The zoning is agricultural rural. The official plan designation is agriculture, and the current use of the property is residential and farm. The image on the right shows the property, and you can see there's a faint blue line that represents the boundary adjustment that goes around the parcel of land to the north of the property. Next slide, please. On this slide, the photo on the left shows the subject parcel, and you'll see the severed lands highlighted in blue around the benefiting parcel to the north of the site, and the retained lands being the residential and farm to the south of the benefiting lot. The image in the center shows the official plan designation as rural with a little bit of environmental protection, and the existing zoning is agricultural rural with a little bit of environmental protection. Next slide, please. So the applicant is proposing to sever a 6 meter wide strip along their north property line and a south property line, and dedicate that strip of land to their neighbor to the north. And the strip was 6 meters wide, and along the side lot line 599 feet in length, or 182.8 meters in length, and across the rear it'll be 134 meters or 439.8 feet. And they still retain or would retain a large parcel at 116.7 acres, and the benefiting property owner would see a slight increase in size of their parcel to 6.3 acres. Next slide, please. This is the sketch that was submitted by the applicant, and it gives it a clear indication in terms of the area to be dedicated, a small strip along the side and a strip along the rear. Next slide, please. So these are some images of the property. So the image on the left is the benefiting parcel with the notice sign just to the left. The image in the center is the front of the applicant's property looking south, and the image on the right is the applicant's property showing the dwelling and farm buildings. Next slide, please. The image on the left is the benefiting parcel looking north. The image in the center is there to depict about what 6 meters would look like that is proposed to be severed. And it's approximately the area between the two fence posts. So you'll see the fence post on the right and the fence post on the left. And about the middle of that fenced area is 20 meters, and going all the way back would be severed. The image on the right shows the boundary, the side lot boundary to be adjusted, and it would be going out 6 meters or 20 feet. Next slide, please. The image on the left shows a portion of the side lot line as you enter into the property, and the image in the center is as you move to the back of the property. One of the effects of the lot line or boundary adjustment would be that the trees that are depicted in the center slide would have a little bit more area around them, and that was part of the reason for the boundary adjustment. And the slide on the right is showing a portion of the 134 meter rear lot line that would be adjusted by 6 meters. Next slide, please. This image shows the farm buildings that are on the applicant's property, located quite a distance away from the current boundary and what would be the proposed boundary. Next slide, please. So the recommendation is that severance application 2024-B07 submitted by Henrietta Houston be approved. It is for a boundary adjustment and would permit the applicant to deed 6 meters, 20 feet wide strip of land adjacent the side and rear of their neighbor's property to their neighbor. It is considered a technical severance under the applicable provincial, county, and township policies, and therefore is deemed to conform to these policies. Approval is conditioned on a number of standard conditions shown on this slide and the next, and one special condition of note. The special condition requires the benefiting owner to deed a small parcel of land to the county so that the configuration of the benefiting parcel is slightly different than what existed before. This is a technical requirement under the Planning Act, as the benefiting parcel was created by an earlier consent application. Mr. Chair, that concludes my presentation, and I'd be happy to answer any questions committee may have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vedaboncourt. I'd ask the applicant, Henrietta Houston, who is registered to speak, if she has anything she wishes to add to the staff report. Ms. Houston, please.
Did the county want Deckers to sever the 10 feet too? Did I, Russ?
Oh.
Did I hear that?
Can you come forward, please, and state your name?
Henny Houston.
Yes.
Henny
Thank
Houston.
you.
So the question Ms. Houston was asking was whether the county had requested a 10-meter strip across the frontage of the benefiting property owner.
10 feet.
Sorry, 10 feet strip. My apologies. When the last time Ms. Houston had a severance application on her property, the county did request that across the frontage of her property.
Right.
And I can respond to you, Ms. Houston, that the county has not requested that 10-foot strip across the benefiting property owner's property, but there is a requirement for the benefiting property owner to dedicate a small parcel of land to the county.
Oh, well, that'll be
as a-
fenced out. We yes.
For technical reasons under the
Yes,
Planning
we'll
Act.
do that right, yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
And the survey will show that. The survey will show that going, yes.
Okay, excellent, thank you.
Is that okay?
Well, just stand by for one moment, we'll see. Any questions from the committee for Ms. Houston? Seeing none, it looks like you're good to go. Anyone else registered to speak to this matter, Madam Deputy Clerk?
No, there were no additional registrations received, Mr. Chair.
And seeing no one else in chambers, I presume then there's no one else who's going to speak to the matter. Any further correspondence received with regard to this hearing during the course of the hearing?
No, Mr. Chair, nothing further has been received.
Thank you very much, Mr. Karaskakis. Madam Deputy Clerk, may we hear the motion, please?
Moved by Clark, seconded by Young. It is recommended, one, that DS 2024-085, George Vadabancourt, Manager Planning, Special Projects, Reconsent Application 2024-B07, Henrietta Houston, 3276 Penetanguishene Road, be received and adopted. 2, that consent application 2024-B07 to permit a boundary adjustment having a lot frontage of approximately 6.1 meters, 20.0 feet, a depth of approximately 182.8 meters, 600.0 feet, and an area of approximately 0.19 hectares, 0.46 acres, to be added to the property described as Lot 39, Concession 1, Part 2 on 51R 25982, Vespra, known municipally as 3300 Penetanguishene Road, be approved subject to the conditions as outlined in DS 2024-085. 3, that the applicant be advised of committee's decision under the Secretary Treasurer's signature.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments with regard to the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? The motion is carried. Thank you very much, Ms. Houston. Thank you. This completes the application process and closes this hearing. The committee wishes to thank all those in attendance for your participation. Cleared the room. Copy of the decision will be mailed to the applicant, agent, and anyone who has submitted written comments or provided oral comments during the hearing in regard to the application. With that, we have finished the public hearings. And now move on to item 7, the reports of the municipal officers. May we have the motion for item 7A, please, Ms. Deputy Clerk.
Moved by Barnes, seconded by Greenlaw. It is recommended, 1, that DS 2024-090, Andy Karaskakis, Manager, Planning Services, Re-Site Plan Control Bylaw Update be received and adopted. 2, that Site Plan Control Bylaw number 2019-056, a bylaw to designate areas of the Township of Oro-Medonte as Site Plan Control Areas, as amended by Bylaw 2020-038 and Bylaw 2023-022, be further amended in order to include certain forms of development from site plan control pursuant to the Planning Act as amended by Ontario Regulation 254/23 as outlined in DS 2024-090. 3, that the appropriate staff bring forth the bylaw for Council's consideration.
Thank you very much. Members of the committee, the floor is open for discussion or comment. Do we have any discussion or comment with respect to the draft? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? The motion is carried. And that is it for the reports of the municipal officers. I'd like to announce that the next meeting date is August 7th, 2024. Be sure to mark your calendars. May we have a motion to adjourn, please?
Moved by Hutchison, seconded by Shell. It is recommended that we do now adjourn at 7:40 p.m.
All those in favor? Oh, that's carried. Thank you, everyone. Mayor Greenlaw, over to you for the council meeting following the Development Services Committee meeting.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Lavoie. That was close, that last vote. That's very well done, though. I'd like to call to order the council meeting following the Development Service meeting. May I have a motion to adopt the agenda, Madam Clerk?
Moved by Shell, seconded by Young. Be it resolved that the agenda for the council meeting of Wednesday, July 3rd, 2024 be received and adopted.
All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Are there any pecuniary interests to declare at this time? I see none. May we have a motion for the draft minutes of the previous council meeting, Madam Clerk?
Moved by Lavoie, seconded by Hutchison. Be it resolved that the draft minutes of the council meeting held on Wednesday, June 5th, 2024 be received and adopted as printed and circulated.
Are there any changes to the draft minutes anyone has this time? Seeing none. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. May we please have a motion to approve the recommendation of tonight's DSC meeting, please?
Moved by Young, seconded by Bard. Be it resolved that the recommendations of the Development Services Committee meeting held on Wednesday, July 3rd, 2024 be adopted.
All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. May we please have a motion for the bylaw?
Moved by Hutchison, seconded by Clark. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2024-071 be read a first, second, and third time, passed, be engrossed by the deputy clerk, signed and sealed by the mayor.
Any questions in regards to the bylaw? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. May we please have a motion for the confirmation bylaw, Madam Clerk?
Moved by Bard, seconded by Lavoie. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2024-072, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the council meeting held on Wednesday, July 3rd, 2024, be read a first, second, and third time, passed, be engrossed by the deputy clerk, signed and sealed by the mayor.
All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. And may I have a motion to adjourn, please?
Moved by Clark, seconded by Shall. Be it resolved that we do now adjourn at 7:42 p.m.
All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you very much, everybody, and have a great evening.